Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. That is still my email. It is still in the description below. Reach out to me for purchase and pricing details of this or any of our watches. That's Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. Today we're discussing a model launched in 2021. This is actually a full steel bracelet variant of a model originally launched in 2015. So this is the Patek Philippe 5205/1A-001, taking a model originally launched in platinum on a strap, adding a full steel bracelet, conforming end links, a steel case, and a green dial. This watch has a lot to offer, and I really feel like right now in the Patek lineup, it's between this and the 5990 for best all-around watch. So what does it have to offer? Well, at 42 millimeters in diameter, it has impressive wrist presence, bigger than the 5960, to which it's often compared, 14.3 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip. You're going to find it is 50.5 millimeters, but if we add the end links to the bracelet, a little bit broader, 53.5 millimeters with a nice modern 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs for a contemporary planted stance on the wrist. Now, my wrist is 16 centimeters circumference. I think if your wrist is my size or larger, you're going to wear this really nicely. It's not a thin watch, but with a concave bezel, it does actually slip underneath the cuff fairly easily. You can see in these down the barrel shots, the lugs are nowhere near the edge of my wrist. I would still say that because of the end links of the bracelet, you want to keep this on a wrist my size or larger, but you will note that there's a little bit of a pronounced downward taper to the lugs, which ensures that if you are borderline to wear this like me, it's still going to look and fit really well. It doesn't look borderline even on a borderline wrist. The bracelet's a lovely piece, very similar to what you get if you ordered a bracelet on an Aquanaut. So we've got this conforming end link to match the curve of the lugs downward and the curve of the case. We have a combination of polish and satin. And then you'll note that Patek feels very strongly about using pin sleeve assembly on bracelets. Now, here is the argument for this. One, though I have never known screws to back out of bracelet links, in theory it could happen. The bigger reason for going this direction is that people and even watchmakers sometimes round off the heads of screws if they become seized due to wrist gunk and perhaps deposits and contamination that leave them fixed in their slots. Screws can strip out and have to be tapped or drilled out, whereas pins and sleeves will never have that problem. There's no stripping and there's no danger of them becoming inextricably lodged in their links. So that is Patek's argument. Now, if you look right here, you can see that there's a size and a half link. See the size of the links? This is an irregular length link. And so that's there in case you're in between sizes, so you can fine tune. We have little pieces of the Calatrava cross. You can see them right there if you're wondering what it looks like. It's the symbol on the crown. It is the symbol of Patek Philippe. And when you close this double deployant clasp, you can see it assembled. Pre-owned watch, there are some marks, but the watch is in excellent overall condition. Twin trigger release, this clasp will not pop open except by depression of both triggers simultaneously. The case band is quite graceful with lovely tapered lugs. Everything's in high polish. The lug profiles are scalloped out, a little bit like a 5205, though they're not hollowed all the way through. We have rectangular polished pushers, and then we have a concave bezel that runs concave all the way around. The dial, a lovely metallic sunburst green, and then you can see we have a sector dial, but it's actually rendered in metal with these faceted white gold baton style indices and faceted white gold modified Dauphine hands. You can see we have polished chapter rings, and then the cantilevered indices, they actually run over those concentric polished rings to create this metal sector dial. Looking down at 6 o'clock, you can see we have a concentric pattern and a counter that gives us a 60-minute chronograph function, which I love because I always feel somewhat constrained by a chrono that only goes up to 30. What if you need to time something between an hour and 30 minutes? Well, this works just fine, and I find I rarely time events longer than 60 minutes with a chrono anyway, so I don't miss the hour hand here. What you're looking at below is a little AM/PM indicator that turns dark when the watch is in the no-go zone, the nighttime hours when you don't want to use the quick set adjusters to adjust the calendar. So when that turns dark, you know that it's night. The calendar, American style, date, month, annual calendar. So an invention of Patek Philippe back in 1996, somewhere between a regular complex calendar and a perpetual. This only needs to be reset once annually during the jump from February to March. We've got a nice white gold facet and frame around the date and a double index above that. There is a fair amount of volume here. This is quite a sporty watch by Patek standards, and you can read the time easily at night. It is also a flyback chronograph, so reset and restart without first stopping. Great for timing events that occur in rapid succession. You can see that there's nothing on the dial that is motile when the chronograph is stopped. So a lot of people like to use this chronograph seconds hand as a constant seconds hand, just so they have some animation on their dials. They have their hours, minutes, and seconds. And you can do that if you just ignore the chronograph minutes. Because of the vertical clutch, there's no additional wear and tear to running the chrono full time. And I actually find that if you want to zero reset, it doesn't have a hacking function, but if you set the time and then use the reset, the flyback, effectively as your zero reset, you can synchronize the seconds hand to a reference time. What happens underneath the dial? We have a wonderful movement. 28520 here, manufacturer caliber, originally launched on the Nautilus Chrono in the 5960 back in 2006. This was Patek's first ever automatic in-house chronograph movement. So we have unidirectional winding with ceramic bearings for high efficiency, a 55-hour power reserve, 4 Hz beat rate, 37 pivot jewels, a free-sprung Gyromax style balance arrangement for shock resistance and precise adjustment, Spiromax anti-magnetic silicon hairspring. We have a column wheel and vertical clutch tandem for the chrono. The column wheel making for a very crisp operation, and the vertical clutch making for a very smooth engagement. We have 6-position adjustment, and we have the Patek Philippe seal. These features in combination add up to a watch that Patek rates for no worse than -3 + 2 seconds per 24 hours, and then all this water resistant down to 30 meters. So it is not an aquatic sports watch, but it is a very sporty watch. We have circular Côte de Genève on both rotor and bridges. Look carefully, you can see the mirrored anglage on the edge of the bridges. Started mechanically, but finished manually and very handsome. We have a spiral perlage on the center of the rotor as well as on the base plate. Polished locating pegs, you could see them at the edge of the case, at the base of the balance cock. Those locating pegs are used to locate the bridges, and they're polished on their heads. Screw heads are chamfered in their slots and circumference and black polished. You could see that there's a lovely solarization on the ratchet wheel atop the barrel as it peeks out from underneath the barrel bridge. We have more engine turning in 2 different sizes on the base plate and satination on the wheels as well as the column wheel assembly. It is a good looking movement, largely hand finished. And this is a formidable watch that can do just about everything. If you want to swim, get an Aquanaut or a Nautilus. For everything else, I think this is the way to go. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Beaten at 4 Hz, this one will tug at your heartstrings.